Do you want to know what spec to play if you want to get invited to Mythic Plus? Or maybe you just want to know which specs not to invite into your group if you want to time your key. Spoiler alert, don't do that, that's not nice. In this video, we're going to be breaking down what are the meta specs, aka the specs in the game that are performing really well, doing a bunch of damage, have tons of survivability or defensives. The bottom line here is that you're more likely to time your keys, especially the higher ones, if you have these more popular specs in your group. But before we get into all that, I do have a couple of things I need to go over with you guys. First off, this video is a response to my last video, which was the Mythic Plus DPS tier list, where I got a ton of negativity and just a bunch of hateful comments on there, which I'm used to. It's YouTube, it's whatever. But a lot of those people didn't seem to understand the point of that video, and honestly, that's my bad. I should have explained this a little bit better to everybody, but that tier list video was more directed towards the plus 6 through 9 area, and again, that's on me. I should have explained it better. So as a response, we're going to be covering the 10 through 11 bracket because that's what everyone really cares about. So I spent most of my day going over Raider IO numbers and creating this chart, which I'll show you guys in a little bit. But we're going to be covering the Mythic Plus seasonal rankings timed only. And this is going to be for, again, the plus 10 through 11. And we're not going to be doing a tier list this time. I think tier lists are just a little bit too emotional and people get really upset if their spec is not in a certain bracket. So we're just going to go over the pure numbers that you really can't argue with, because data is data and they don't care about your feelings. Alright, without further ado, here is the fancy little tree chart that I came out with, where I plugged in all the numbers from Raider.io and generated this tree chart. And right off the bat, it's pretty clear what's popular and what's not. The bottom left indicates the more popular specs, and the top right is the less popular ones. So basically, if you're playing a spec that's more towards the bottom left, you're in a pretty good spot right now. And if you're playing something like a Beast Mastery or Sub Rogue in the top right, you're having a really hard time right now. And it's kind of crazy. The chart here, you can't even really see the numbers for Beast Mastery or Sub Rogue. Those are the two yellow and light green squares in the top right there. They're both roughly about 1.2% of the population right now, so it's pretty rough. And then as you kind of start to climb, you've got Arms Warrior at 0.6, Feral at 0.8, Outlaw Rogue 0.9. Now again, this is not a chart that's representing just, the specs based off of their pure DPS. This is mainly the popularity of the spec. So damage alone is not what's going to make a spec really good in Mythic Plus right now. That's a combination of stuff. For example, Frost DKs are just dishing out a ton of damage, and they're just super tanky and have a lot of survivability. Also, I want to remind you guys that the numbers for the different specs and like the popularity of them literally changes every single day. So these numbers are going to be constantly fluctuating, and this could be completely different next week. Some interesting takeaways from this chart is that the popularity of some of these specs actually changes a lot as we increase the difficulty for Mythic Plus. For example, when we guys look at the 10 through 11, which is this chart, the clear winner for mage specs is Arcane Mages. But if you start bumping up the difficulty and you get up to a level 13 and up, for example, the difference between Arcane and Frost Mages definitely starts to stick out. Now, granted, anything above a 13 and higher, there's a very small player base that's doing that. Like, just to give you an example, a 13 and up, there's literally 24 Arcane Mages that have done it, and I think 23 Frost. So as I was saying at the start of the video, I don't want to do a new tier list. So instead, what I think we're going to do is just kind of separate everybody into charts. And the first thing we're going to do is we're going to label this by, we're going to go red, orange, yellow, and green. And obviously you guys can kind of see where we're getting at here. So basically the specs that are in the red here, this is what we call the danger zone. These are the specs that I would say you're going to have a hard time getting into keys. And for right now, you might want to start leveling something else, right? The orange specs, I label them as why am I dying? Yellow is we are gelling, and then green are the Giga Chads. So while I still have you guys here, if you guys could do me a huge favor, and if you enjoyed this video, let me know by subscribing to the channel or just telling me in the comments, because I know there's people that are going to have a problem with this video too, so that's fine. Thanks so much for watching. I'm still Solo, and I'll see you guys in the next one.